They both feed each other business. I mean, the plumbing business allows us to be more efficient, more effective, more cost effective for our clients and for our residents, reducing turnover, being able to solve for that maintenance stuff. But in real practical terms and in your space, as far as growing the business, the plumbing company, 60% of their business has nothing to do with the PM company. They've grown that much. So they can act as a referral source for new PM clients. And our PM clients also own homes that they live in, which has become a source of referral for the plumbing company. So it really becomes a symbiotic relationship.
Today I'm speaking with Justin Mann, co-founder and managing partner of Stonelink Property Management, which services Rhode Island and Southern Massachusetts. Justin has grown his property management company to over 1,700 units under management. Not only is he the co-founder of Stonelink Property Management, they've also gone on to acquire a plumbing and HVAC business as well as a landscaping company. Justin shares what that experience was like in this interview and takes you through how he manages to stay on task with the property management division, as well as the plumbing and HVAC and landscaping company. So Justin was kind enough to speak with me today to share his experience. So I want to get straight to it. Let's head on over to the interview. Just a caveat, I will not be on the video portion of this interview. I had a technical issue with my computer. I apologize, but Justin has a ton of wealth to share with you. So I'm going to take you straight to it. Enjoy it.
I got into property management a little bit different, I would say, than some other people that start property management companies, in that myself and my business partners were real estate investors first. We didn't really have visions of becoming property managers. We really were out there either fixing and flipping homes or buying and holding. And we were intending originally to outsource the management. And we did. We tried doing that in the early days because we were really focused on other aspects of real estate investing. But the more we did that, the more frustration built up. And at one point, we just kind of reached a boiling point where we just really felt, right, wrong, or indifferent, we think we can do a better job. We just want to take over management of our own stuff. If we're going to die on that hill, at least it'll be our choice. And so that's how we actually got into property management, as it were.
Okay, and then so that's all self-managing, but you guys also manage third-party for third-party owners, right?
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit what that transition was like? Like, how did you go from managing all of your own properties to one day you have people that are sending you properties to manage on their behalf?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Some of it really has a lot to do with, again, our origin story. We were real estate investors in the great state of Rhode Island here, which is about the size of a thimble. So it's not very hard to imagine that being the real estate sphere within Rhode Island, you're shoulder to shoulder with other real estate investors, some of which are doing fix and flip, some of which are doing fix and flip and buy and hold. And so we started out actually doing self-management, if you were, just to a small little portfolio that we had, but we kept that separate, but we learned a lot along the way. And as other investors saw what we were doing and realized we were starting to have some success because we were growing our buy and hold portfolio rather than just offloading them, they started to come to us and say, hey, would you be interested in helping me or taking over management of my stuff? It seems to be working for you guys. Love to have you doing it. It was only at that point we said, oh, wait a minute, we got to get serious if we're going to do that and codify this, build out processes, build out procedures. Because doing it for yourself is one thing. You screw up, you answer yourself, and you make a lot of mistakes in those early days, but you learn quickly because you're cutting the check for your own mistakes. When you start managing other people's stuff, now your mistakes cost them money. So that's a whole nother level. So our transition was our relationships with other real estate investors that wanted to get us involved because they felt like we were successful in doing it for ourselves and wanted to apply that formula to their holdings.
Got it. And where did those relationships stem from? Were you going to real estate investor meetups? Was it just from doing deals and meeting people over the years? How did that kind of happen?
Yeah, all of the above. So again, a little bit different. We never, while we have obviously a licensed broker on our staff, we were never engaged in third-party representation, buying and selling of homes, like the traditional realtor broker model. So our relationships were built really purely on the investor side, either deals that we were doing, people on the other side of the table, professionals in the space, whether it's real estate attorneys, brokers that we were working with on the fix and flip side, or the, whatever that case may be there, CPAs, other people in the real estate sphere that we had been working with on a day-to-day basis as investors became referral partners.
Okay, great. And I guess how long did it take you to actually hit your first 100 doors? Not ones that you owned, but third party.
Yeah. Third party. So I would say that happened. We opened our doors officially, which amounted to me sitting down at the kitchen table in our little office, opening my laptop and say, okay, let's do this. So from that point in July 2016, I think it was till about May of 2017 that we kind of crossed the 100-door mark.
Okay, so
just a little less than a year.
Just under a year, and that was all purely based off relationships that you had.
It was relationships, and actually our first client, as it were, weirdly from a timing perspective, that wasn't relationship based, came through Craigslist. I just threw up an ad and said, hey, we do property management. If you're interested, somebody called. We went out and looked at their 6-family, and that's kind of where it started. But initially, a lot of it was referrals, but we were just doing some like down and dirty guerrilla marketing, if you will, like, word of mouth, Craigslist ads, things like that. We didn't even get into pay-per-click, and we can talk about all that kind of stuff until years down the line, like where we were. And I think I ran a whopping 1 Craigslist ad, so I don't want to overblow that strategy. I don't want to.
If I had to guess, Craigslist probably doesn't work too great anymore.
No, it doesn't. I think that was kind of like, a broken clock is right twice a day sort of thing. So
it worked out for you in that moment. So it was the right call.
We haven't done it since, full disclosure.
Okay, got it. Once you started to hit 100 doors or started to gain some scale, what were some other strategies that you did to help grow the business?
Yeah, I think, and this really speaks to our overall strategy. Really early on, property managers are obviously held accountable for the deliverable. So a client hires us, and whether something is broken and needs to be fixed, or a resident needs to be placed in a vacancy, we're responsible for that. Now, in most property management models, what we had seen and experienced ourselves was they were outsourcing those activities, right? They were really an aggregator. We, from a strategy standpoint, decided early on we wanted to vertically integrate. So our third hire was our first full-time maintenance person, because I didn't want to outsource that. We had seen a lot of pitfalls. Every time we had to outsource something, that was the most likelihood of it going wrong, because we had the least amount of control. And so we just said candidly, looked ourselves in the mirror, if a client is going to hold me responsible for the outcome, then I want to control that supply and service chain. And so we early on decided we're going to insource as much as possible and make that a strength rather than outsourcing, which we saw as a weakness. And that we really did see help us grow, because maintenance, and we can get it into this, is really the number one reason you have turnover in an apartment, a house, whatever the case may be. Bad maintenance leads to move-outs. And so that affects the client, that affects the resident, ultimately affects us as well, because if we have a vacant apartment, we can't collect a management fee. And if we have a vacant apartment, that means the client can't collect rental fee, right? They can't get their rent to pay the mortgage, and so on and so forth. And most residents, they don't want to be moving unless they have a life change or something. So we solved for that by insourcing maintenance, and that did help us grow.
Okay, that actually led to more people reaching out, or when you say it helped you grow?
Absolutely. So it was a marketing talking point for us. We were able to sell that messaging to our to potential clients, because that was a question they asked. If you go on our FAQ on our website, we would get asked all the time, well, how do you guys handle maintenance? Well, we're proud to tell you that, we do all in-house, unless of course it needs to be outsourced, more on that later, to a third party like a licensed plumber, a licensed electrician, a licensed GC. But our insourcing messaging resonated with potential clients, because they understood. It's like, if that person is on my payroll, I inherently have more control over that outcome than hiring a third party business. and hope and pray that they're going to go when they're supposed to go and do what they're supposed to do and communicate when they're supposed to communicate, right? I have less control. And clients understood that, and they saw the benefit of it. It allowed them to really own the outcome in a way that we couldn't otherwise.
Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, over time, you've actually moved into owning these other types of businesses, right? So right now you own a plumbing and HVAC company, as well as a landscaping company. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you ended up owning those companies? What was that process like? And how did that decision come to be?
It was a very selfish decision. Again, because we got tired of not having enough plumbers to go out and take care of the properties. As we grew, it became harder and harder. And when we did have plumbers, were they going to deliver on what they said? Was the service level going to be there? Was the quality going to be there? Was the timeliness and responsive going to be there? And that became harder and harder. And it became a very, very painful part of our business, because of course, plumbing is a critical part of maintenance, which is a critical part, as we just discussed, of property management. And plumbing isn't the kind of thing that gets better with time. It's not like wine. Generally speaking, when there's a plumbing issue, you need to solve for it right away. And it just became so difficult, and we became so frustrated with the experience. We said, you know what? We got to solve for this. And the only way we knew to do that was to go back to the model of where we started, which was insourcing. So we went out and bought a father-son plumbing company. It was just a father and son, third and fourth generation plumbing company. So they had a lot of experience. We had worked with them as an individual third party, and we just approached them and say, hey, we want to buy your business. We want to bring you aboard. And we did. And that was a little over a year ago. And since then, it's grown 5x. We now have more than 5x. I think we have 12 licensed plumbers, journeymen, and apprentices. And they're doing work throughout Rhode Island and Southern Mass. So a pain point then became a strength for us, because we were able to offer a more cost-effective solution, because we discount their pricing to our PM clients. We were able to guarantee that deliverable, because again, now I'm signing that plumber's paycheck. So if I pick up the phone, I'm like, listen, we need you out there. They're going to go. It isn't, oh, I've got to do this, or I've got to squeeze you in over here. It's like, nope, we'll get there. And we could hold them accountable because they were us. We were all now under the same umbrella. So
makes sense.
Became a strength. And that was the reason.
Well, one thing that I'm wondering though, how do you find time to manage a plumbing business, a landscaping business, and a property management company, right? Because one of those alone is a tough task. So what does that look like? Do you have other partners that are managing the plumbing side, or can you explain to us a little bit how that works?
Yeah, it's been a work in progress, because everybody, you can talk about vertical integration and insourcing, and at the surface, it all makes sense. What I can tell you, real talk, pulling back the curtain, it's a lot of work to really get those gears to work together and to get those organizations to work together. But to answer your question directly, yes, we have a general manager for the plumbing company. We have a comptroller that sits, this is stuff we've built over time. But I don't mind telling you that I bounce between, I throw on different hats as a managing partner on the plumbing side and as a managing partner on the property management side. But again, a lot of it is really intertwining, because so much of what I'm managing on the plumbing side has to do with the property management side. So I'll have both parties at the table. So if we can use the expression, we'll kill two birds with one stone, there is some of that goes on. But
so synergy between the two.
Yeah, there is synergy, but it's a lot of work. There are days where I can literally see the gray hairs popping out of my skull as I'm doing it. And it is absolutely a grind, but we see the value in it. So we stay the course.
Okay. And when you purchased that company, did the father-son come with it, or did they
100%.
step out? Yeah.
No, yeah, 100%. They both came with it. The father, who is the master plumber, became the general manager of the business, but his focus primarily is in the field, overseeing the teams, ensuring quality and service. And the son is also a journeyman plumber, so he's in the field as well. But then we brought in some back office staff, because what we found, and I could speak to this as well on the landscaping and snow removal side, because we did purchase that company as well. Similar story is those tradespeople are really, really good at what they do, turning wrenches and fixing, pipes and installing and doing all of that stuff. But they may not be as good at the business side of running the business. Accounting, marketing, communication, customer service, invoicing, and all accounts payable, accounts receivable, profit and loss statements. Those are areas that, not surprisingly, the average plumber, no matter how good they are within their trade, it's not their area of expertise. And so we built an infrastructure to support the trade, and then gave them the freedom to go do what they were really experts at doing, interfacing with customers, delivering that service, solving for problems, and not worried about AP and AR and P&Ls and income statements and all that kind of stuff. We took those responsibilities off their plate. And in that, we saw success because other solopreneurs, other plumbers that were out there kind of running their own business, saw what we were doing and then started coming to us. So in a space where everybody's like, oh, I can't find a plumber, they were coming to us because we created a solution that met both our needs and theirs. And so we learned that along the way. We didn't set out to solve for it in that way, but it was one of our learnings, and we're blessed that it worked.
Yeah, I guess there's obviously a difference between being someone in the trades versus someone that's running a business. And I guess if you can offer a solution where they don't have to worry about running a business,
right,
you'll find a lot of interested applicants, right?
Right.
Awesome. That's super interesting. I think that the value is definitely there for the property management side of things. And on the same note, I mean, plumbing and HVAC is a really good industry with pretty good margins as well. So I'm sure that can end up being lucrative as well over the long run.
Yeah, they both have the potential, obviously, to be lucrative, and they both feed each other business. I mean, the plumbing and business allows us to be more efficient, more effective, more cost effective for our clients and for our residents, reducing turnover, being able to solve for that maintenance stuff. But in real practical terms, and in your space, as far as growing the business, the plumbing company, 60% of their business has nothing to do with the PM company. They've grown that much. So they can act as a referral source for new PM clients. And our PM clients also own homes that they live in, which has become a source of referral for the plumbing company. So it really becomes a symbiotic relationship.
So can we touch on that a little bit, just so that I understand? When you say, like, they'll get called out for a plumbing job, but it's a rental property, and that'll actually end up feeding a lead to the property management business?
It could, but moreover, I guess I'll clarify. So if you look at the revenues for the plumbing company, about 60% of it has nothing to do with the property management company. They're doing new construction of houses and commercial buildings and all that kind of stuff. And so when they're out there doing those types of jobs, oftentimes they can refer clients or potential clients to the PM company, because their client out there, they might be building a building for, doing the plumbing on a new construction building for, might need management service. So they can refer them to us, and we're all wearing the same shirt, so to speak. So that client is a warm lead or a warm transfer to us as a referral. I'll flip the script. The property management company has obviously clients, and we have our plumbing company service those rental properties, but those clients also have personal homes or maybe other holdings that we don't manage that they also need plumbing services for. And so we can refer them to our plumbing company, say, hey, listen, I know we don't manage that building, or this is your own home. Obviously, we don't manage that, but you need your hot water tank replaced, you need a boiler in. Our plumbing company can help you with that. And so we're able to, again, reciprocate and symbiotically refer business back to the plumbing company, just through our own contacts network and people that we know in the space.
Interesting. So on that point, let's say from the growth standpoint, from a marketing and sales perspective, how is your team structured? Do you have one person that oversees all the marketing for all of the companies, and all of the sales for all the companies? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I only laugh because our director of marketing is my wife, and she used to be an army of one, but I quickly realized I was going to get divorced if I didn't get her more help. So it was quickly blossoming, and it has now. And so we have a marketing department, and again, we've picked up synergies there because her department focuses not just on the property management company, but also on the plumbing company and also on our landscaping and snow removal company. And it all ties together because, again, those are services that property management needs, as we've been talking about. And so there's a lot of cross-marketing opportunities. They will be posting on social media for landscaping, but again, it ties back into property management if somebody sees that. They might be posting on social media or doing a video for the plumbing company, but we can tie in the property management company and vice versa. So we have a department, it's made up of multiple people now, but they provide marketing services through partners like you as an awesome partner for us on the property management side, to help with the things that we can't do. So we don't try to do everything in-house as far as marketing is concerned. She and her team spearhead the things that we can do, and then outsource and partner with experts in areas like yourself on SEO and website and content, and all that kind of stuff, to create a full service approach for all companies.
Got it. So you're a smart man. You realized quickly it was leading to a divorce and needed to get some help in there for her. It's funny though. What we see is smaller companies have this idea of one person can handle all of the marketing. Whereas even if you look at Fortune 500 companies, these guys are outsourcing tons of marketing, and they have really big marketing teams in-house, but they're aware of the fact that marketing is very general, right? It's like saying I do business. You don't do business.
What do you do?
Right? There's so many different aspects of business, right? And it's the same thing on the marketing side. You can't just do marketing. There's very specific areas of marketing that you can't, and you can't be a specialist at everything. If you're a specialist at everything, you're great at nothing, basically.
Right. You're a generalist, which means, you're missing all of the real opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you have the right mindset there, where basically like leveraging, you have a marketing team in-house to oversee everything, and then leveraging people's specialization by outsourcing certain components of that as well. Yeah. So if we go back to the property management side of things, we were talking about what led to your first 100 doors. Obviously now, if I'm not mistaken, you're above 1,700 properties under management, or about there. What were the pivotal points in your business that required big decisions to be made?
I would say, if you looked at it from a door count standpoint, like the first big change was 100 to 300. Even 0 to 100 obviously was a change, because you go from I'm doing everything myself and you have total control because you're doing everything, to, oh, wait a minute, I need to hire somebody. So within that 0 to 100, it was obviously a change. We hired our first person and then our second. And then the next big change, and this was, I found personally to be very unique to property management, because I've been in other industries. Leveling up in door count almost required a reevaluation of structure, process, procedure, and reevaluation of how you're going to market. And so 100 to 300 was a pretty significant mark for us. And then as we got above the 500 door count mark, again, it felt like we kept having to, at those major milestones, to reevaluate, rejigger, sometimes reconstruct and rebuild the business. And where we've gotten to is much where this conversation just a minute ago about specialization. We moved away from, as we went up door count, so 100 to 300, 300 to call it 600, 600 to 900 to 1,000, and then at that 1,500 mark, it was like all over again. The bigger we got, the more and more specialized we became. So property managers became client focused with a team underneath them. Somebody doing inspections on the maintenance side, a maintenance manager, a turnover manager, a leasing manager, right? We didn't want generalists, because what we found is even a hybrid role became inefficient and ineffective. I really wanted somebody to become that specialist where this is what they do all day, every day, but they really niched down enough where they became an expert, and then were able to add value, but working together with a team. And so as we grew, those were the, from a door count standpoint, those were kind of the major milestones. And the learning from that was our structure and then specialization. And, we moved through, and I know there's pod, there's department, there's general, there's all these different kind of models, if you will. We found that going to a department model built around a team really worked the best.
Did you find that there was one point in your growth where it was the most difficult? Let's say you're like, at the 500 door count, that's really where we were pulling our hair at trying to figure out what to do. Or was it kind of just, the same type of issues coming up at, as your company continued to grow? Did you notice anything like that?
Yeah, there was, but it was for some very specific reasons. So through the growth, we made changes along the way. And I don't want to use the word incremental, but there wasn't a watershed moment where it was like, we're this today, we're that tomorrow, right? Through each of the level ups that we went through, we reevaluated and changed and re-engaged in a new way. But it was, turns of the dial to make it better most of the time. The watershed moment, if there was one, we took on a large portfolio. It was, goodness, well in excess of 300 doors. And there was, as it turned out, a massive amount of reperformance that needed to happen. So that extreme event, if you will, right, was a catalyst for us to reevaluate how we went to market, because we realized our existing infrastructure was inadequate, both in staffing and, so scale, if you will, and specialization to really attack this problem. And so that really, if anything, if I look at anything, I look at that as something that truly helped forge Stonelink as it is today to be built for scale even beyond moving forward. We revamped and respecialized our maintenance department. We really went to town on the property management side and broke it out and created PMs and APMs, assistant property manager model. And it forced us to do some very uncomfortable things, but they were necessary. And we always looked at it asking ourselves this question: if I can do it at 100 doors, can I do this at 1,000 doors? And if I can do it at 1,000 doors, can I do it at 10,000 doors? We never wanted to be small, and there's nothing wrong with boutique. I mean, that's a strategy in and of itself. It can be very lucrative and very fulfilling, but we wanted to be at scale at a regional level. And so we really looked at it, every problem that way. That event, though, was absolutely a major catalyst. I can look back at it and say, yep, that was certainly something that happened in our history that gave us a swift kick in the pants.
Got it. So obviously you guys manage a fair amount of properties now. I imagine you must have something in place to help reduce owner churn. What does that look like? What's your communication with owners? Can you walk us through a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, you just said it. It's communication, right? We all throw that around. Oh, it's the glue that holds everything together. But what does that look like in practice? For us, the model that we went with, again, looking at, so every client gets 2 points of contact, and they're basically thing one and thing two, if you will. If you're like a Dr. Seuss fan, you have your property manager, who is their primary point of contact, and then they have their clone, which is their assistant property manager, and everything is copied back and forth, all communication, everything, whether it's text, whether it's email, whether it's phone calls, even, they're engaged at the same level, if you will, at the same time. So if one isn't available, the other is. So that provides that continuity that clients love. So that really helped. Oh, I called and nobody, or the person I got didn't know anything about what I needed because my person wasn't there. So that was one thing we wanted to eliminate. So business continuity, if you will. The most frictionless way to share information between departments, right? So property management is one department, but we have maintenance over here, which is then broken down into break, fix, and turnover. How do we ensure that we have frictionless communication between those departments? Because that was also another area that we had learned over time could create client churn, right? Something happened over here in maintenance that PM knew nothing about that caused a pain point with the client. Client reaches out to the PM and the PM's like, well, wait a minute, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not a good look. Right hand needs to know what the left hand's doing. Another thing that we did was being high touch. So either our PM or APM are in touch probably weekly, if not, multiple times throughout the week with our clients for various reasons. But at minimum, then, for no reason, they're reaching out at least once a month saying, I have no bad news, nobody died, nothing blew up. I just want to know how you're doing.
And is that just through an email, through a text message? What does that look like?
And that's a great question. We're always backing everything up in writing, but we never want people to hide behind their illustrious keyboard. So picking up the phone, talk to the human on the other side.
I didn't think people still do that these days.
No, we absolutely do. And we reinforce that over and over and over. Don't get me wrong, we absolutely rely on written communication, text and email, and portals and all that stuff certainly has a massive place in the communication kind of arc, if you will.
Yeah.
But some things need to be done over the phone or face to face. We will have them come into the office and say, hey, so that kind of brings us to the next. So at least once a month, again, bearing in mind that the PMs and APMs are in constant communication anyways, but at least once a month, they're just reaching out to take temperature. How are you? Are we missing something? Like we're not talking about day to day. We're just saying, Stephen, are we doing, what you expect us to be doing? How are we aligning with your goals? We talked about this early on. Let's kind of sit down and figure out where we are. So that was another touch point. And then we've started doing anonymous surveys where we just send it out to our clients and say, here, we ask them questions. How are we doing? Where can we improve? So on and so forth. And then we follow up on those in real ways. And then another layer is the director of property management, right? On top of everything else I just described, reaches out once a quarter and personally to each of the clients and says, I'd like to meet with you. If you can do so face to face, great. We'd love to have you come into the office, or we'll meet you for lunch, or we'll go out, do that. If you can't do that because you're out of state, totally understand. Let's get on a Zoom or a Teams call and do a video chat and just touch base and understand how is our team, right? Because they don't talk to this person on a day-to-day basis. So it's like, tell me how my team is doing for you, right? So that gives the client another layer. And then lastly, our business development manager checks in kind of on an every 6-month basis on top of everything else, just to see, totally divorced from PM, because they're not involved in that, totally divorced from maintenance and all the day-to-day. And they have a relationship that's different, generally speaking, with the client because they're not involved with that. They also get to check in just to see. So our clients receive a lot of, hey, how are you? And we really want to know that.
Yeah, no, when I was saying that phone call is a lost art, I was saying sarcastically, but basically, it's crazy. And I find, especially with younger generations, like when we hire younger team members, it's almost like we're scared to pick up the phone these days.
Right.
And sometimes what takes 2 hours to write out a proper email can be solved in a 20-second phone call. So it really, really is powerful sometimes. Just pick up the phone. They hired you. They wanted to work with you. Don't be scared to speak with them.
They want to work with a human, not an AI synthesized bot that gives kind of canned responses. Also, to that end, sometimes the phone is just a far more efficient way to communicate. You say what could be a 2-hour email. How about like 20 emails playing ping pong back and forth that started with a question that resulted in an answer that resulted in another question. And we've all been there. It's like, wait a minute, hold on, time out. And when we see that happening, it's always pick up the phone. Stop typing, pick up the phone. Because what you're also missing, and this is something that I learned many, many years ago in college, 90% of communication is nonverbal. You lose all of that with two-dimensional, text-based communication, whether it's email or text or whatever. You lose the intonation, the voice, and you don't know the emotion behind the email that's being sent. Are they mad? Are they sad? You're trying to interpret it. Where's their head at? And we're emotional creatures. And so to try to divorce ourselves from that, I think is a road to folly and disaster. We have to embrace it and understand that our clients are people. They have emotions, and what you may be telling them is factually correct, but they might actually feel very strongly about it. And hearing your voice, even just to reassure them and explain it in a tone that's caring and understanding, might make all the difference between keeping that client, going back to your question about churn, and losing that client.
Yep. No, 100%. I couldn't agree more on that. So if you had to go back in time, let's say you were back to day one where you're starting your journey in property management, what would be the one thing you would change to help you succeed at a quicker pace?
The short answer I'll give you is don't grab the electrified fence. I'll unpack that for you. Okay. I'm one of those people. This is my failing. So what I would tell my younger self is learn from the people that came before you. I was always the guy growing up through PM, especially that somebody might tell me that that fence is electrified, but I wouldn't necessarily believe it. I'd have to grab it to prove it, right? I learned by doing the school of hard knocks. I didn't go to my first, for instance, NARPM broker owner conference until April or whatever it was, March of 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was an eye opener. So we opened our doors 2016. 6 years later, I show up on the doorstep of NARPM, and it was like somebody pulled back the curtain and say, oh, by the way, all that stuff you've been struggling with and that you learned through the school of hard knocks. Yeah, we could have helped you a lot sooner. So the short answer is this. Get engaged with people in the industry, learn from the people that have come before you, stand on the shoulders of the giants in the industry to learn from them. You don't have to learn everything trial and error. Generally speaking, I can say to you with my hand on a Bible, what you're experiencing, somebody else in this industry has gone through before, they've learned from it, and you can learn from them. And that is the absolute advice I would have given my younger self. I joined NARPM really early, but I just looked at some, trade organization. I never really engaged, and I'm only using them as an example. Heck, I think, you and I met through NARPM. I know, well, technically, I think Laurence actually engaged with you guys, but she found you. But there's so many resources, and they're just one example. There's terrific companies, but moreover, it's a terrific community. There's so many awesome property managers out there that have just a font of knowledge that if I was starting out in the industry, I would pay serious money to know day one rather than, day 700. Right.
Yeah, we hear that from almost all of our clients that we recommend go to a NARPM conference. They come back their first time, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was out there. It's almost, never mind the knowledge you get, but it's also therapeutic, I believe.
Oh, 100%.
You can go somewhere where people actually understand the language you're talking. They understand the problems you're going through. Whereas, 99% of the people you say this to, it's kind of like in one ear out the other, like, oh, that sounds really tough.
Right.
But they can't give you any actual feedback. So yeah, I definitely think that's a good recommendation. If you have never checked out a NARPM conference, definitely get out there. They happen. There's 2 national ones per year, so those are usually pretty good to go to as well. Yeah. Justin, thank you so much for sharing everything. We really appreciate it. If anybody wants to connect with you, where would be the best place for them to go and reach out?
Well, I mean, they can call me on 954-895-8074, jman@stonelinkpm.com. You can go to our website. I'm on LinkedIn, where I have Facebook. I'm not hiding. I'm not hard to find. Please reach out. If you have questions, I'd love to share whatever I can to help others learn. I always tell people there are a lot easier ways to earn money than being in property management. So if you're here, you got to want to be here. You got to believe in being here. And other people in this industry want you to succeed. You can count me on that list. So feel free to reach out. Stephen, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much.
Really
Take care.